campana que está abajo de este video para que le lleguen todas las notificaciones de las entrevistas que tenemos en este bellísimo canal. Y el día de hoy tengo el gran honor de que me acompaña Steve Conley, guitarrista de una de las agrupaciones más importantes de los años 80 en el mundo del thrash y power metal también. Ellos están por lanzar su 14º material discográfico titulado Blood in the Water. Y sin más, Flotsam and Jetsam. Hey Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing perfectly. Thank you very much for taking my call. And then let's begin with some thoughts about you from the upcoming album, Blood in the Water. I already listened to it. I think it's great. Can you share me more details about this production?
The production, like the making of the record?
Yeah, please.
We let's see, we recorded it mostly, we share files back and forth, so a lot of the recording was done at each of our home studios, and we did Ken Mary has a recording studio here in town, and we did the drums at his place and the vocals there, and me and Mike Gilbert did our guitars at our home studios, and Bill did his stuff, and he lives on the East Coast, so he did his stuff at home as well. And then we shipped it off to Jacob Hansen to have it mixed and mastered again. Second time using him. He's great. Very happy with that.
Did you like this new way of working at distance?
To be honest with you, we've been doing that the whole time I've been in the band, really. This is the third record that we've done that. In the past, we've had members that didn't live in town, so it really, and we live pretty spread out. Phoenix is a very big town. It's like 4 or 5 million people, and it's very spread out. So some of us live over maybe an hour apart, drive one way. Okay. So it makes it hard with the other things everybody has going on, jobs or whatever, to, set aside a regular schedule to all get together and try to get in a room and do it the old fashioned way. And so this way it just seems to work. We demo the songs. Me and Mike both do demos on our own, and we'll send them to AK and Ken, and from there vocals will get written, and we just kind of at the end we would see what songs seem to be the best ones, because like for the End of Chaos, both me and Mike sent AK like 20 songs a piece. It was like 22 songs each. That's a lot of songs, for one guy to have to try to write magic over 44 songs, so you don't know whose songs are going to be the better ones with lyrics and vocal melodies on them. You can have the greatest music in the world, but if the vocals don't get there, then you have to set that one aside and go, well, that one just didn't get there, or you choose to rewrite it or whatever. But, we want the best stuff on the record we can have. So that's just kind of how we work. We just send ideas back and forth, and we're able to not necessarily, we can work at our own time when we choose, so I think I kind of like it, versus the old days of sitting in a band room 5 nights a week arguing over stupid stuff, So we're too old to be arguing every night.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And yeah, just as you mentioned, vocals is a very important part, especially with this direction that the latest albums from Flotsam and Jetsam has taken. And that's another one of my questions, because I feel like Blood in the Water follows the same melodic line, maybe a more power metal approach of these songs, also very catchy choruses. If you can tell me more about the decision about this direction.
Well, like I said, because we're writing different, okay, me and Mike, we write different. We're different guitar players, and I think that's one of the nice things about us writing alone is that, like, Mike Gilbert has a way of playing that's natural to him, and it's a recognizable sound to Flotsam and Jetsam fans, and I write the way I write, so it allows us to have a different dimension on the record. And so the thing for me is AK is he's a world-class singer. The guy has an amazing voice, and you want to hear the guy sing, you know what I mean? And so for me, putting catchy choruses a la like Iron Maiden in a thrash song, you know, was just a different approach, and I thought it might work. Like I try to do that on my songs. The stuff that I turn in, if it's even if it's heavy, like the song "Blood in the Water" was a song that I wrote the music to, and I made some of it's almost borderline. The beginning almost is borderline like death metal. You know, it's got the crazy picking and stuff. Um, and then, but when you get to the chorus, you know, that kind of playing isn't going to suit AK's vocals. You know, and I'm aware of that. So, you know, if you keep going in that direction, you're going to basically write him out of the song. You know, and so when you know, so I try to stick melodic choruses on those songs because he's a great singer and he has amazing abilities to deliver on those kind of choruses. So, and you know, he surprises me though too, because on the last record, Architects of Hate was a song that I wrote, and I did this, it's almost a death metal like picking thing in the chorus. I thought there's no way this is going to make the record. He's going to hear this and go, what the fuck am I going to do on this? And he sent me back the demo and I was floored. I was like, holy crap, he figured out something to do over that worked for him. And it was completely out of character for other things I've heard him sing, but it worked awesome, you know? So sometimes he surprises me. I think, this isn't going to work for him. It's going to be too brutal or something, you know? And he figures it out, you know? So, but the melodic thing, you know, he has such a great voice, you know, it makes you want to write, makes you want to put a chorus in the song and hear him sing, you know?
Sure.
I mean, I think making him sing like a normal thrash singer is discrediting his abilities, in my opinion, you know. So, but he has a lot more abilities than that. So
Yeah, he's definitely not the usual thrash metal singer.
right. Yeah, no, he's not, but he ended up in a thrash metal band, and Flotsam gets pigeonholed as being that, which sometimes they are, you know, and they definitely were in the early days, but over 14 records, not all of their music has been thrash metal, you know, so it's almost kind of weird to try to put a category on Flotsam and Jetsam sometimes, because when I look at the different eras of the band before I was in it, I don't consider Quattro and Drift thrash metal records. You know, that's not, there's nothing thrash about those records. So
Neither high.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? They kind of embarked in a different area after that. So it's like they're almost a couple different bands after Doom or after No Place for Disgrace. They sort of, the 90s hit and they became something else. So, and some fans love that era of Flotsam, you know.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to Blood in the Water because also the themes on this record, it has this very post-apocalyptic vibe. I love it. I love how some of the themes reflect everything that's going on current society. There's one song in particular that is stuck in my mind, that is "Cry for the Dead," that
Oh
has
yeah.
very epic beginning. If you can also tell me more about these themes approach by the record.
That one is a Mike Gilbert composition. That's all him. He wrote that. Um, and when I heard the AK finally sang on it, and I heard the finished version of it, I was like, "Wow, this is the fans." I think the Flotsam fans are going to really connect to the song. It definitely has some pretty strong lyrics in it that, you know, kind of grab you and bring you in. That's a great song.
Cool. And one of my favorite song of the album was actually "Walls." If you can tell me about that.
Oh, thank you. I wrote that one.
Ooh.
That was my, yeah, that was my, so on the last, since I've been in the band, I always try to write, I like really heavy music, you know, but I always, for AK's sake, I've wanted to dabble with, I always throw one or two commercial-esque songs in the mix, you know. Iron Maiden, I wrote that one, and it was the one that I had come up with, and he, you know, knocked it out of the park. I mean, it's a fun song to play. It's very melodic. And, you know, so it's just kind of one of those things. I throw a few of those, I guess you want to call them power metal songs, and I know that's how they're going to get classified in there, you know. But I always throw a couple more melodic songs in there to see what's going to happen. You know, if he's going to come up with this just amazing chorus, it's going to just push it over the top, and you're going to end up having like, you know, a successful song like, you know, an Iron Maiden, you know, Wasted Years or whatever, you know, because I always think of AK a little bit, in my opinion, is just that being that kind of singer when I hear him sing. And I know he likes some commercial music in his own taste outside of what we do. So I know that he likes stuff with big choruses, you know. So I try to feed him some of that stuff to see what'll happen. And if it works for the record, it works. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. But I just kind of throw it in there and see what happens.
What kind of music do you also like besides metal and rock?
Um, let's see. I like, you know, I'm a fan. I like the Police and like Sting. If we're not talking about metal or rock, I thought the Police and Sting solo stuff is great. Um, you know, I even like Journey, you know. So
Who doesn't?
exactly. I mean, you know, Neil Schon was a monster guitar player. So Toto, I love Toto, you know.
Cool.
A Foreigner, you know, love all that classic, you know, 80s, early 80s melodic music is all cool stuff too. But I do, you know, love you know, metal and Arch Enemy and stuff like that. That's, you know, more beyond what we do. So
Great. And now for one last question about the album. Going back to what I said about the post-apocalyptic vibe of it, the lyrics in it,
mhm.
would you say that it was totally inspired by what was going on the planet last, like in 2020, or were there any songs written in the past?
Some of the songs were demoed, believe it or not. Let's see, Burn the Sky, um, that music and What Is Now Blood in the Water were two songs that I had demos of probably 2 weeks after the End of Chaos was mixed. I had written and demoed those up and had them out to the guys, you know, already. So those songs have been around since almost the end, you know, right as we were putting out the last record. So I don't know if you know, this current state of the situation of the world had anything to do with those. I think we tour with a lot of heavier bands. It's like, you know, because we're considered a thrash band, we're always going out with like Overkill, Sepultura, Destruction, and stuff like those are the packages that we end up on in Europe. And Europe's an inspiring place for me because it's my favorite place to tour. There's lots of cool stuff to see. It's a very old world. There's just a thing about it. And so, you know, it kind of touring over there with those bands every night and you're playing those shows. It's a very lively metal scene over there. So it's very inspiring to writing that kind of music and more aggressive stuff when you're on bills with bands that are just, you know, they're slaying it, you know. So it kind of takes you in that heavier direction. You know, even when we play festivals, it seems like they stick us right in the middle of the heaviest bands in the world. I mean, we've been like, we played festivals where I've been on the side of the stage before we go on watching the band playing before us. I'm going, oh my God, we're going to sound like Poison when we go on, you know? The people are going to boo us off the stage or something, but it always goes over great. But I mean, some of the bands that play before us at festivals are so heavy, you just go, oh my God, you know, we're going to seem like we're Journey, you know? And so I think some of that rubs off on you a little bit when you're, you know, playing and you're around that kind of stuff all the time.
But at the end, the audiences go along with your music, right?
Oh yeah, they do. They love it because it's a change, you know. They like to hear people sing and do what Eric does. You know, he's great. But it's sometimes you just go, man, why we're always on these festivals? It's just like complete crazy bands playing before us. I'm like, how do we fit in with this? You know?
Right. And now that you just mentioned festivals, I'm going to skip to my last question before moving forward to the other ones that I had. You were scheduled to play here in Mexico City at Domination Festival last
Yeah, I'm
year.
so
Have you
bummed.
have you heard anything from the promoters? Do you think we will be able to see you in Mexico in that festival?
I heard that they moved it to the next year.
Okay.
So supposedly they were still going to honor the deal as far as I know. I guess we have a new agent now. We switched agents too. So the agent that originally did that deal for that festival, we don't work with them anymore. So we have a new agent that will have to, but he seems to think that it will still be honored, or we'll still get to do it. So we definitely want to come down there and play that festival. We were excited to come down there and do it. We haven't been to Mexico in a long time, not since I've been in the band. So I know everybody was really excited to play that festival. I heard it's a great festival.
Yes, because the last time Flotsam and Jetsam came to Mexico was in 2011.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Steve, now I have some other questions related to the band. The first one is related to something that happened last year. Why did Michael Spencer left the band?
Oh, well, what's the fairest way to put that? He joined the band back again right when I got in the band. So I think, we came back in the band about the same time. I think over a period of time, maybe some personal relationships got soured a little bit, like it does in all bands, and I don't think that the situation was really any one person's fault, but it's something that was allowed to go on longer than it should have, without getting, some sort of resolution to the problems, that people were having with each other. So I think after some conversations, everybody didn't feel like it was going to be something that we could move on with. And unfortunately, that's not really how we wanted it to go, but, that's the way it went. So I don't think that there's any party in the situation that's totally at fault, to be fair to him. But, Flotsam's an interesting band to be in sometimes. It's like every other band. We're all humans, and we all got our things,
Yeah.
So, but, it's just that, it's just unfortunate. There's just things that, I think he wanted to go his way, and we were going in another direction, and just couldn't resolve our issues, I guess. So I think that's the fairest way to put it, in the most honest way.
And thanks for sharing
Yeah.
it that way. Yeah, I know
I
it
mean,
must be
hopefully
difficult.
that's the fairest to both parties, because I certainly want to be fair to him, because, like I said, I don't know, Flotsam's a band, and we're human beings. Every band has drama. It is what it is, So.
Sure, and everybody has its own issues.
Yeah, and he has a history with other members in the band from 1987, when he was in the band the first time. So, um, you know, um, so be it. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, the next couple questions are going to be interesting because they're related to records you were not part of. And
Yeah.
I want to know your opinion of them. For
Okay.
example, in 2014, Flotsam and Jetsam re-recorded No Place for Disgrace. In that, back then, sitting difficulties getting the master tapes to re-release the album. What do you think about bands revisiting this old material, like Exodus, for example? They did the same with their debut album. What do you think about that?
Um, I don't think it's a good idea.
Share it.
um, when you record something and you capture lightning in a bottle, this is the saying goes, I understand the business side of it. You want to get your master tapes back. You want to re-release your property. And then you can't get the stuff. So bands have this idea. It's sort of like, didn't Def Leppard did it, and they tried to re-record Photograph, Pyromania? I
Yeah.
mean, how are you going to do that? That's not going to happen. It's like, give me a break. Just don't even, why even, there's no reason to even try to do something that's stupid. You know what I mean? So for some bands, though, you have this youth, and you captured a certain moment in time, and to try to go back and duplicate that is quite difficult. And I think more often than not, the fans are going to take it in the wrong way, like, because they're so glued to their idea and their memory of that record when they bought it, when they were a young fan. And then years later, you try to repeat this thing that was magical, and it's magical to the fans, to try to do it justice again the way your fans remember it. It's usually not possible, to hit it right on the head. You know what I mean? It usually goes south, is what I'm saying. So
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I honestly believe it's some kind of nostalgic hit instead of trying to do something new.
yeah, yeah. I understand the business side of it,
Yeah.
but I don't know that it's just hard to do something like that if you can't recapture what you did. And some people think that they're maybe doing it better, or they're going to make it sound better. But sometimes even if you make it sound better doesn't mean that it is better. It lost somewhere in replaying the parts. It gets a little weird. An example of that, me and Mike were talking about this the other day, about some of the songs on our record have they are the actual demo guitars, not, we didn't re-record them.
Wow.
So when I program my Superior drummer stuff and I play the parts, I try to play them pretty good to where they're almost keepable finished album tracks, because I may not revisit that song again for a year. And when you come back, by the time you write it, and then you sit and you go on tour and you do stuff and you go, okay, it's time to make a new record. Let's go back and listen to these demos. So now you have this demo and you go, okay, now I got to relearn these parts because I played it one time in my life the day I wrote it and recorded it. Because that's usually how I do it. I write it as I'm recording it. And to recapture that, I find doesn't actually work. And somebody had said that it sounded like we had gotten in a room and wrote this record. And me and Mike were kind of laughing about it. It's like, well, we talked about that idea of not redoing the guitars because sometimes we tried it and it didn't work. And it was like the demo guitars sound better than my new performances that I've been practicing. So the fire wasn't the same. So you're just like, no, just keep the demo guitars. And so I think when you're trying to recreate something, like you were saying, there's something that gets lost when you do that. Even if you make it more perfect, it gets weird, and it's just like, it's not the same thing.
Yes, and that's an interesting way to record an album. I never heard of a band that stuck with the demo parts of some of their songs. It's very interesting that you just mentioned, because yes, sometimes it doesn't feel the same way that it was originally conceived, and that's
Right.
something very valuable.
When you are you a musician too? Do you play?
No, I don't play.
Okay, so when you're coming up with riffs as a guitar player or musician, sometimes the initial fire of you playing something that you really you come up with a riff and you really like it and you think, wow, this is cool, I'm digging this. And at that moment, you play it a certain way because you're excited about it, and you're feeling it at that moment in time. It's spawning this thing, and it's coming to you. So when you're playing it, it has a different energy than when you may come back months later and perfect, okay, I know what the part is, and you try to play it again. And sometimes it just doesn't have the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And that little thing is something that I notice within metal fans. They catch on to stuff like that, because you hear some fans are like, oh, the record sounds too clean, or it's too perfect, or it's too this, or it's too that. So, I mean, we want to have good produced records, but we still want it to have an edge to it and sound like it's got some fire to it.
Yeah, especially in metal, some fans prefer this raw
Yeah.
sound. Like for example, I can think of a better example like Venom, because
Yeah,
they
or
have the
Slayer.
production resources to do a perfectly clean album, but they stick
Right.
to their original formula.
Yeah. Yeah. And even Slayer records, if you think about it, the old Slayer records don't sound good, but we really don't want them to sound good, do we? We
No, we
like to keep them the way they are. Like if Slayer went back and re-recorded Rain and Blood, I just don't know. And it was all slick and polished. I just don't think it would be as cool.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that honest as the first
No.
time. Well, Steve, for one last question, 2021 marks the 35th anniversary of the debut album of Flotsam and Jetsam, Doomsday for the Deceiver. Do you plan anything special to celebrate it?
We haven't talked about anything like that. I think it was 2 years ago, the Kid Festival. We played the whole album in its entirety for a festival, a special thing. And we've done a few handful of shows where we did do that already. So I don't know if we would, nobody's ever talked about doing it again. Um, so, I don't know if that's on the table or not. And I don't know if that's, I guess if the fans or promoters, if it was something that they really wanted, then maybe it would be considered, but we've already kind of done the whole album in its entirety in the last couple of years at several shows. So
Um,
probably not, I would say, but you never know. The right offer could make it happen.
that I love that sincerity. Well, Steve, for one last thing, I want to ask you for a small favor. If you can send a greeting to all our audience here at Pólvora and inviting them to listen to Blood in the Water.
This is Steve with Flotsam and Jetsam. Look forward to coming down and playing for you guys pretty soon. Please check out the album, Blood in the Water, coming out June 4th, and hope to see you guys soon.